Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Debbie Levine, and I am a member of the NCGR Florida Atlantic Chapter. And I am here today with Eric Meyers, who is our next upcoming speaker. He will be joining us on Saturday, November 16th. We are going to be having an online workshop, so everyone and anyone is welcome to come and participate with us. So Eric, I am so excited to be here and I'm so excited for your workshop. I'm looking at this is a workshop that's the awakening, right? The awakening of the spiritual, right? It's this astrology of the spiritual awakening. And it sounds so exciting. And I can't wait to share with everyone what this workshop entails because it's so different than any of the other workshops we've had and what they can expect. But before we jump into that, I'd love for them to know a little bit about you because you have like a really interesting background and how you came here through astrology. I know that you have a background in psychology and you're an author. You've written 7 books, seven, my favorite number. That is awesome. With your most recent one being about the Beatles. I can't wait to read this one. It sounds so, I'm a big Beatle fan, so I can't wait to, in case you guys don't know, I'm talking about the music band, not the little bugs. Um, so, so anyway, Eric, welcome. Tell us.
Thank you for having me, Debbie. Yes, it's always a honor to share my approach and share my work. And so thank you for having me, and I look forward to a nice dialogue about it.
Awesome. So how did you? I always love hearing people's stories, right? Everyone, it's like, how did astrology find you, right? Because I feel like no one gets into astrology. Astrology finds us, and then it like
Yeah,
attacks us. We're like, so how did astrology find you?
yeah. Well, that's a great question. It was the late '90s, and I was in my mid-20s at the time. And the astrology that correlates is that transiting Uranus in Aquarius hit my Aquarius North Node.
Oh, wow.
And that's from the bird's eye perspective. What happened on the ground was that I went through a process in my mid 20s of just being blown open from my skeptical, atheistic science kind of orientation. And just became open to the metaphysical, to the spiritual. And with that opening, just a series of synchronicities unfolded. And I ended up in Boulder, Colorado, studying transpersonal counseling psychology. And people there were talking about astrology. And of course, I was like, okay, well, now that I've been open to everything, why not astrology? So
Why
let's
not?
check that out. And sure enough, as soon as I checked it out, it grabbed me. And I ended up studying it feverishly, and I ended up doing my master's paper on astrology as a counseling tool. And
Oh,
I graduated in 2001 with my master's in transpersonal counseling psychology. And then I decided to be an astrologer, and I have been ever since. So it really coincided with graduate school and then synthesizing that into what I've become.
wow. And so tell us the twist and turn that got you into this, because you have a different and unique approach, right? There's lots of astrologers, they have different approaches, and you have a very unique approach to looking at the chart. And how did that come for you? What was the realization, or
This
how did
is
you
the
come
gift.
to
I
this?
didn't get into astrology till age 26.
Oh, before your Saturn
And
return.
was that?
That was even before your Saturn return.
Yes. And so I already had a background in science, in psychology, and other metaphysical things. And so the way it happened for me is that as soon as I started studying conventional astrology, something didn't make sense. I was like,
Ah,
wait a second. My scientific understanding of the sun and moon is not really being reflected from what I'm reading in all of this literature. Didn't make sense to me. In my understanding, the sun is a star. The moon reflects the light of the sun. 64 million moons fit inside the sun. To me, they weren't ever understood as an equal and opposite pair. It just doesn't make sense scientifically.
right, right.
So So my understandings of science informed how I would look at astrology rather than just accepting the way people understood the sun and moon thousands of years ago. And I don't think the moon is a luminary, doesn't have a light source. It's a reflection of the sun's light. So I just developed my ideas in accordance with nature and science and what was actually the facts out there rather than the way people viewed these things a couple thousand years ago. So
Mm,
so that's just the way my path went. And so I developed my own understandings, which I don't even believe are that unique or original to me. You'll see threads of this in various other approaches and in the literature. But I'm really looking at the moon as the organization of our physical or biological, and the sun as our energy. So the physical and the energy body. And that's really clear what they point to. And then the energy radiates out, just like the sun does. And the moon is our physical kind of consolidation of attachments and needs and identity and survival instincts. So I decided that looking at the moon in personality ways, meaning male and female or mom and dad, that is a personality orientation. And my work is looking at the sun and moon from a spiritual orientation. That's not about dualism and personality, it's about matter and energy, and
interesting.
about the past being the moon and the present being the sun. So I wrote that book called Between Past and Presence, a spiritual view of the moon and sun. And then the Astrology of Awakening just builds on that basic idea.
Oh, that's so cool. And just out of curiosity, what's your sun and moon?
I'm a Cancer sun with a Leo moon.
Oh my gosh, I have a Leo moon too. The
Ah,
Leo Moon Club,
yeah. What's your sun?
Aries,
Okay. So
fire,
you're
fire.
pretty fiery.
But I am a Cancer rising.
Okay.
So I got you covered there. What's your rising?
Pisces.
Pisces. Ah, okay. So you're double water and fire. So your approach, you tend to focus a lot of your energy on the sun and the moon when you're looking at the charts and understanding the evolutionary process.
Basically, the basic idea, as I'll talk about in the workshop, and I've worked with clients for 25 years, is the basic idea is this: is the
Okay.
moon is kind of like the seed or the
Yeah.
acorn, and the sun is the flowering or the blossoming into our spiritual potential. And then the nodes of the moon are the gardening. So in my format, you had the seed, the moon, the gardening, the nodes of the moon, and the sun, the awakening into our spiritual potential. Now, it's not just the moon nodes and sun. It's more complicated. It's everything going on with them, aspects, rulership, the whole shebang. Um, and that forms what I call the chart skeleton. And then everything else is hanging around the skeleton, kind of the padding of the muscles and the tendons and all the rest is the rest of the chart. But to me, that is the core.
The core, the sun, the
Yeah.
moon, and the nodes.
And that is about maturation from the spiritual childhood, the moon, the early stages of development in this process of awakening or evolution into our present potential in the present incarnation. So the moon is assumed to be inherited. Bring an evolutionary approach is what's been organized, consolidated, attachments, identity from the past at a personality level. And then a lot of that simply needs to mature. We need to grow into the promise of the sun. I see the sun, um, as a developmental process to get there, to get the fruits ripen. This is what occurred to me early on in my studies, is that a lot of people I found said things like, "Oh, I'm a Capricorn sun, but I don't identify with it," or
Mm,
Sagittarius, or whatever it is. And I could say the same thing too. I'm a Cancer sun, but you know what? That doesn't really capture. I identify much more with Leo. I've always been very Leonine, but I see that I'm growing into Cancer and being more emotion focused, more heartfelt, and I saw this with a lot of clients, and a lot of people would say everyone seemed to be like their moon, and everyone seems to be growing into their sun. And that's the basic idea that is part of this approach. So the sun's a depiction of the potential ripening and the fruits that might be there, but we have to grow into it. And for me, growing into Cancer, becoming more emotionally attuned, a counselor, bringing in focus on self-love, on emotional processing, really is um, really quite important in not only my own life, but in my work, is that evolutionary growth.
Interesting, interesting. And so during our workshop, which again, for those just tuning in, is on Saturday, November 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Again, it's online workshop, so anyone can join. And so during the workshop, you're going to teach us your approach. Is that the process that you're going to take us through?
Well, there's going to be two parts. There's going to be the lecture part, which is the presentation of all of the material, and I've been developing this for 25 years now, since the late 90s, and and I've written, books on it. So it's directly from, my work, and I've done it many times. And so, and then part two will be after a break, applying it uh to all the participants charts, and depending on how many people show up is how much time per chart. I've been really kind of adept at going quickly and doing them in 5 or 10 minute chunks, or I can sit with a
Oh,
client for 2 hours and
nice.
talk more in depth about this. So so I'm flexible. I've been doing this a while. So whoever shows up, however many people, we will apply it to your chart.
Oh my gosh, that is exciting, right, for everyone. So yeah, so okay, so first we're going to learn all about the approach. We're going to learn about the sun and the moon and the lunar nodes and how this whole evolutionary, this growth, this spiritual awakening in essence that we go from. And then once we learn about it, then we're all going to get to apply it. We'll get to apply it to our chart, and we'll also get to see it applied to others' charts. So everybody who comes should bring a copy of their chart.
Yeah, well, ideally, a lot of times I get the birth info ahead of time for people who register, and
Okay.
then I actually will cast a chart, have it prepared that they're going to be there. So if that's possible to get the chart info in advance, then I can have the chart up, already have looked at it and done my preparations. Or there has been times where I do it off the top of my head, which I'm also actually pretty adept at, as I mentioned. Um, but it is nice to get the info ahead of time if possible.
Okay, perfect. So you guys heard it. If you want to come and join us, well, after you register, let us know. You could send in your birth information so Eric can cast that chart. And of course, bring your charts too, just so you have it hands-on. But this way, you'll get to
I'll
you'll
bring
get
it
to
up
see this in
with
action.
they don't actually need to bring, I mean, they could if they want, but I'll have it, in the presentation. I'll share my screen and I'll have it up.
Perfect. I love that. So anyone who wants to have this done, they could send it in. And if they want to just be the observer, they could just be an observer. See how the process
Yeah. Oh,
works.
yeah. If people don't want to volunteer, they don't have to. I found that generally 100% of people do, but if people are uncomfortable, that's fine too. I have no agenda to make people participate.
Okay, I love this. So it's a two-part workshop, one part theory and one part practice.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so I was just thinking when you were talking, so I know you take the sun, the moon, and the lunar nodes. So the ascendant, is it, they don't necessarily need to know their birth time, like the ascendant isn't a part of the process?
Well, everything in the chart is. That
Okay.
ascendant uh, is a house cusp, and all the houses house where the planets are. So everything in astrology is important. But we're looking at the energetic development, which is the planets. To
Okay.
me, the ascendant is an orientation, like the compass is the
Yeah.
houses, and east is the ascendant, and it's an orientation. And my view is that the ascendant has been conflated with the planets. The planets are the energy of the system. The houses are the orientation. They're different, but they're often lumped in together. And that's one of my pet peeves is that people often do that. So this approach is looking at the energies And then the
right.
houses is how we orient them to the world, how we play them out in the way we navigate our lives, which is a different thing.
Ah, yes, I love that. I love that. Yes. Okay, awesome. I was so it all fits together, right? We need to look at the picture holistically, right? As well as the skeleton of the chart.
So with the accurate information, you could see, where things are playing out in the houses, which I
Yeah,
would extend that's a lot broader than just the first house. All the houses, are the playing field. And so that is part of my approach. I do use houses, but I'm just looking at the evolution from the consolidation of the survival instinct of the moon to the maturation process of being in the more awakened potentials of the sun is the focus here.
got it. And just out of curiosity, do you also look at how these progress? Do you look at these sun and moon and nodes as they progress in a progress chart?
Well, that's what I'm writing now is all about the progress moon,
Oh
a
my
book called
gosh.
Seasons of the Moon. No, progressions are probably my favorite thing in all of astrology. Where we are in the progressed lunar cycle is hugely important. But it's a different focus. You can't talk about everything in one lecture.
Right.
So that isn't the scope of the talk, but that is hugely of interest to me.
Okay, so that's for a future workshop.
Yeah, you can't do everything at once. Yeah.
I totally understand. Um, would it be possible to, I don't want to put you on the spot, share any examples of like when you've used this approach for people, the like outcome for them, like how I know you're a counseling astrologer as well. So by looking at the chart from this approach, what um what type of results or what kind of things have occurred with some of your clients?
Well, I'm not focused really on outcomes as much as process,
Okay,
as discussing what is the spiritual lessons. Now, when I consult with people, it gets grounded into the context of their life, and we could talk about, the application of things. Um, Absolutely, that is relevant. But my focus is more on understanding the evolutionary curriculum. My focus is on growth and process, lessons, issues, seeing the astrology chart as a curriculum rather
mm,
than saying, here's what will happen, here's the
right,
outcome. I don't believe astrology is about outcomes, prediction, everything predetermined. I
right, right,
believe it's about lessons and processes. So I consult people about how to meet the curriculum of their chart, and I let them lead. Oh, here's what I'm interested in. Here's, the areas or the issues, and then we apply it from what's going on in their life. But I don't assign them that. I see the chart owner as the driver and
right.
the astrology chart as the car. And they're the ones that are driving. So I allow them to lead, and I don't suggest how it should manifest, but I work with what they bring to the session.
Okay, so I just had that when you were saying this, I had this vision. One time I did this workshop and I had that same concept because people do, they feel like they're like, doomed with their chart. And I'm like, no, you have free will, you're the driver. And I had this picture of this dog driving this like cool old car, like from the 50s. And when you said that, all of a sudden I was from years ago, that slide, but that image just came right into my head of the dog driving the car.
Well, this bridges into the main focus for me. Honestly, I've got Uranus square in my sun, Aquarius North Node, and really what I'm about is modernizing astrology from its antiquated history. So things such as prediction, things such as judging everything as good or bad, looking at the sun and moon from an outdated lens of perception, all of these things and many more is really the focus of my work in my life and what I'm going to be dedicating the rest of my time on this planet, around what can we do to uh, modernize astrology for the age of Aquarius. That is my focus. So I spend a lot of time, just as we are now, bringing in more progressive modern perspectives to things that I believe are antiquated and outdated that are still being perpetuated.
Oh, I love that, right?
My view.
I think we need that because there is. I know myself, I get so many clients that come from all that stuff they've like read and these old books are online and it's so much doom and gloom and my fire, my chart cannot take that. So I'm always
Yeah,
like,
and this
can
is
we change the perspective here?
yeah, this is the issue. So I have been, resigned to be more on the progressive fringe, and that makes sense with my Aquarius North Node in the 12th.
Yes.
And that's like why I started. Any invitation or involvement that I have, I always welcome. But I have come to understand that with a lot of the traditional focus in the field, my work isn't really welcome in some quarters, which is fine.
Uh, uh, right? That's fine. We have to be okay. And Aquarius, that's part of the Aquarian energy, right? Being your
Exactly.
okay, being uniquely you.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't matter what other Leo moon, don't worry about it.
Well, it helps releasing the attachment of being
Right.
liked. So it's perfect because my view is we all need to release attachments to the moon that are from earlier stages of maturity. So it's actually quite helpful for me not to have validation and celebration, so I can just hold my truth that I know without needing that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Love, love, love. So, well, gosh, I am super excited. I can't wait to dive in and learn more about your approach and your process of how, you look at these charts and how you're able to like, break through the barriers that have kind of been set from the past, right? Because I think it feels freeing. Like and I already feel just the idea of it like more free,
Yeah, well, that's
right?
the point is that we need to take responsibility for our charts rather than looking for the answers outside of us or thinking that everything's predetermined. And this type of astrology really is about personal freedom and responsibility. Now, yes, there are intentions. Yes, there is karma. Yes, there are things that we need to deal with, but we have a variety of different options at our disposal of how we attend to things. So again, I see astrology as a curriculum, and
Yeah.
it is our lesson plan, and we can engage that curriculum in a wide variety of ways. And so I just strategize to support people. Here's your curriculum. Here's your owner's manual. How are you going to choose to drive?
Yep. Awesome. And I love that because when I teach, I tell people they're in Earth school. So if they're in
Yes.
Earth school, they need a curriculum. I'm always,
Yes.
right? I'm like, our souls were up there in Soulville and we were having so much fun. And then they were like,
Mm.
it's time to go to Earth school. And you're like,
Yep.
no,
Yep. So on
or you
top of
might think that.
to build with the sense of personal responsibility is my view is that everything in a chart is the person. It's not your mom, it's not your dad, it's not this, it's your version of these things perhaps, but it's you. Everything in the chart is you.
Mm,
And all too often people are locked in separation consciousness. These are things are not me, or this is outside of me. But my view is that everything is you in your chart, and you play that out and you project it out as the theater of your soul work. And we need to locate the projector inside rather than blaming things on other people.
mm.
My moon is doing this and it's because of my mother. No, your mother is not to blame for anything. She is just the perfect projection screen for your chart.
Oh my gosh, you're singing my story. When people do that, I'm like, as you cannot use astrology as an excuse for bad behavior
Or blame the planets. Oh yeah,
or
because
blame him. Right?
Saturn's
That's
on my Venus, so
exactly. I hear
no.
that all the time. I'm like,
Yeah, well,
oh
this
my,
is these are part of the misuses of astrology, which is going to be my focus in years to come. How we need to enter the age of Aquarius by shifting from the misuses of astrology, the way I understand it, things that are not consistent with what we know about reality now.
yes. Oh my gosh, right. So people, they gotta own your chart.
Yes,
You
we all
gotta
do.
own your chart, right? Awesome. So, oh my gosh. So I know you're writing you're in the process of writing another book, but if people wanted to learn more about this, if they wanted to like have one of your books that would help go along with this workshop, what would you recommend for them?
Well, the Astrology of Awakening is the book on this,
Okay.
and that one came out in 2012. And that's the basic philosophy of this approach. And then part two, Astrology of Awakening Volume 2, is chart application and counseling of how to bring this approach to the counseling room and the application, as we talked about earlier, into client work. So I did take the time to write those books. And so, yeah, that's where they can find it. And then I did, like I mentioned, have this other book, Between Past and Presence, A Spiritual View of the Moon and Sun, which is earlier. Um, Still, that's more of a beginner book. It's my most basic book, but it's the basic idea that I'm mentioning that is further developed with the Astrology of Awakening books.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So, if you are interested in learning more, first of all, come to our workshop on November 16th. It's Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then you could get right there. It's great to read books, but it's always even more inspirational to me to hear it from the author's mouth, right? To hear him present
And
and
to
tell,
apply to their own chart,
and
or they
then
could also,
exactly.
get a consult, and then it's much more in depth about their chart.
Perfect. And they can go to your website. Your
Yes,
website is, yeah, we'll provide that too. It's Soul Living. I should have wrote it down, but
Full
you did.
Vision
Even
Consulting.
say it again.
Full Vision Consulting.
Soulvisionconsulting.com.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, I am super excited, Eric, to see you on Saturday, November 16th, 10 a.m. And this workshop is online, so all are welcome from around the world. Come and join us. And if you want to have your chart, one of the charts looked at, make sure that after you register, that you submit your birth information so that Eric has time to cast your chart.
Yeah,
All
that'd be
right.
great.
Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate you joining us, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Yes,
Ciao.
thank you, Debbie.